Hey there, Pamme Turner here with a little bit of information on watercolor sketching, watercolor prep, and then also finished watercolor of a more formal nature. But what I wanted to do today was do a little bit about kind of how you get from this point over here to this point here, and kind of make it easy for you. When we go out on location, when we're anywhere, we're at the Watermill, we're in Italy, when I'm in Southern California, I always try to make the adventure really interesting for my students, because I don't expect everybody to end up at this point right away. The one thing we want to do is have fun sketching, do a little bit of prep, and then work up to something a little bit bigger. So I'm going to show you just a couple things here, a few techniques that'll be kind of fun. I've got my palette out, I've got some water, I've got a nice piece of watercolor paper underneath here. I've already sketched out a little bit of a fountain. And I'm going to move this painting a bit to the side here. There we go. I did want to show you that I've done this painting as a large piece, and I've also done it as another one on location, which was a lot of fun. Both of these use a really soft blended background. You can kind of see that here, and lots of variety in the color. And then this one, of course, it turned the fountain on, so I got a little bit more interest in this guy. So let's take a minute to think about how we're going to do a little bit of sketching. I'll pull this guy over here just a little bit. When we're doing sketching for a fountain, and I'll do that over here, I've already got this guy all worked out as it is. I start with a pencil, and I'm doing a little bit of what I call kind of a dot-to-dot sort of watercolor approach. So I might put my pencil here, I could put it here, there, here, and then I can kind of follow along with a little bit of a light pencil sketch. It's a lot easier than taking your hand, going all the way across, and then trying to follow everything. And then I've got my little statuary here. I'm looking at this little guy, which is my reference at the top, my little statuary. This piece was actually done in a garden in Florence, Italy, in the Bobbly Gardens. And some of you might have already been to that location. Wonderful little garden. And then everything will be based off of this curve. We're just going to kind of bring kind of the bowl shape of the fountain underneath here. And then, of course, everything goes from the center of the fountain. There we go. So I've got two fountains here. They're not actually kind of working together right here, but they're I mean, they're not in the same plane, but it gives you an idea of how you would start your sketch or your drawing for your piece. This little guy, by the way, just to let you know, this one's super fast. This one was probably painted. This was painted on location, and this was painted probably in about 15 minutes. I do remember that because there were a few little bugs biting, and I had to paint quickly. It's one of the things that happened. This one was a preparatory sketch. I actually put hot pink watercolor on the paper and then simply used black and white, which was kind of fun also. So all these techniques are available to you when you're working with plein air and prep for plein air. So one of the colors I like to mix for shadows, and especially when we're in the Mediterranean, is a little bit of cobalt blue and a touch of any type of warm red. So now we've got really a nice purple. You can make it a little bit bluer if you want. That's a wonderful color for shadows. Another color that's really great for shadows in the Mediterranean would be a cerulean blue. That's that one. That's a little more greenish. And you can use something, instead of using a warm red and a cobalt blue, you can use cerulean blue, which is a little bit greenish. And then you can put something like a alizarin crimson or a little bit of carmine, if you have that, or rose madder. Those are all great. And that makes another kind of purple that you can use for shadows in the Mediterranean. That's a wonderful purple. Let's put a little bit of that on our drawing. See how that goes. We're going to pop the color. This is dry paper. We're going to go directly on that. We're going to go in and push the color aside, put a little bit here, tip a tiny bit of water there, and pull that brush stroke down. And kind of pull a little bit across there. Pull this up just a little bit. There you go. And then we're pulling out some base on here as if there was a bit of landscape or shrubs or something behind there. We're going to take our brush, tip back into our watercolor mixture, and then because our shadow's on this side, we're going to pull the shadow over here as well. So that's just kind of a sketch idea of what this little guy has as far as a shadow. Now we've got some color here, and what we did just now was we did wet on dry. Now we're going to do wet on wet, and we're going to take a little bit of color that would be the color of the fountain itself, which might be a yellow ochre. Pull a little bit of that there. Might be a little bit of new gamboge. Will be some kind of warmish color. And we're going to go back over here, and we're going to let that color just kind of drift back over onto the little fountain itself. Now see what happens is some of the colors mingle and they merge, which is what the essence of watercolor is. Really a lot of fun. Let's try it again up here. We'll do the same thing. We'll try the second mix, which is the darker mix, and that's going to go again on here. We're going to take the shadow, go underneath, and a little bit of shadow here, maybe a little bit bluer. We're going to pull that down. And then we're going to tip back in. This time we'll try a little bit of new gamboge instead of the yellow ochre. And we'll pop that on this side and just down in here and let those colors kind of mingle and merge, which is really the beauty of watercolor. Really so pretty in watercolor. And we'll take a little bit of that. We'll also do what we did before, which is take a little bit of shadow on this side. Remember, this is the shadow side. And we can also take a little bit, let's see what we can do here. What we want to do is we want to leave some whites here, and we left some white on this side. But suppose we say that there's going to be some dark behind this. Now we're going to mix a little bit of a green, and we're going to take this little pocket we have of new gamboge, and we're going to add a tiny bit of either Prussian, which would be a dark blue, or we could take a little bit of French ultramarine, either one. But we're trying to make ourselves a darker color here. Remember, you can't make a darker color without darker paints. So a little bit of new gamboge, a little bit of Prussian. And we're going to take that and we're going to pop it behind here as if there was some trees behind there, just on this one to show you what we're doing. Now this is again wet on dry. So we're getting a hard edge, and we're going to let a little bit of that bleed here. A little bit more Prussian. And pop that right in. There you go. And if we want to bring some darker dark down into here, we can also pop back into the Prussian blue and just put some back in right on top of the wet area. Look at that. Ooh, that's fun. And we're going to put a little bit of dark underneath here. And we'll go back in, get a little more Prussian. Or you could use ultramarine blue, either one. I kind of like the Prussian because it's so nice and dark. And you can pop that around on this side. A little bit more Prussian on here, especially on the light side. If you have a light side, you want to put dark behind that light side. There you go. Now, if we want that foreground of that little guy just to kind of pop forward, we'll push this up just a little bit. We want to make sure that we make the area in front of the fountain, we want to make that kind of warm, because warm colors advance and cool colors recede. So we're going to take a little bit of that red that we had before. It's going to be super red. We're going to take a little bit of the gamboge. Wow, that color is pretty strong. And we're going to kind of temper it with a little bit of yellow ochre maybe. And a tiny bit of cerulean blue, just to make it go brown just a little bit. Those are all color mixes you can put together that are a lot of fun. So everything that I do when I teach painting is based on blues, reds, and yellows, how they mix together in your palette, how you can actually get this wonderful kind of mix of shadow and light. Remember, shadow is usually a blue base, light is usually a warm base, usually kind of with yellows. Let's put a little bit of color on here. This might be some kind of forward wall right near the fountain, or something in front there. And look at that. That looks like it kind of pops forward here. Now, if things are drying, as they do in watercolor, which I think is very interesting, and you've got, let's go in on this guy just a little bit. I think I can go in just a little bit. Maybe we'll pop back out just slightly, so you can see. So what I wanted to show you was that if you have some areas here, and this is still damp. Remember, we had dry paper before, and then we put color into wet paper, and now we've got kind of paper that's drying just a little bit, and it's semi-damp. So I'm going to go back into my Prussian, which is my nice dark color, and I want this to be a little bit lighter over here. In other words, I want my fountain, my little fountain. Remember, we're focusing on just one thing at a time. I want my little fountain to look like it's even lighter. So how do I make that look lighter? I make what is behind it darker. So I can come back in here, and because that's damp paper, I'm not going to get a hard line. And I'm just going to get a little bit of blur there. Not going to get a lot of run. There we go. And now I've got that area that looks totally light behind there. We can add a little bit of line there, and just let your brush kind of dance on here. You can bring a little bit of shadow underneath there. We can bring a little bit of shadow under this side here, tiny bit, coming out on this side. Again, the paper's fairly wet. And that's your little fountain. Let me show you this guy again to kind of differentiate. This is my fast sketch, super fast sketch. I've got, this, of course, Bobbly Gardens, little castle in the background. Got my little fountain here. You can get a little bit closer. This one is a combination of pen and ink with shadow areas, and then some bright highlights of flowers and a little distant castle. But this one really was just a little bit of a trial with colors and dark and light. So that gives you just a little bit of idea of kind of how we would work if we were on location, working with one little idea, or as I say, one little magic moment. Hope you liked this video. It was a lot of fun to do. I used one brush. I pretty much used my red, yellow, and blue for this whole venture, and got us a variety of colors. Background colors were greenish, foreground colors are warm, and then using my nice darks to create that idea of some type of contrast between the light and dark areas. So I hope you like this. Take care.